Midnight, the Rio Grande, South Texas, near Roma. The air is thick with fog rolling off the water. Mesquite trees stand like sentinels along the bank, their branches reaching toward the moon. The river moves slow, dark, ancient. It's carried voices for centuries. Spanish explorers, Mexican settlers, indigenous peoples, all leaving their marks in the mud and memory of this borderland. Tonight, it carries something else, a sound. At first, you might mistake it for the wind or a night bird, but then you hear it clearly. A woman's voice, crying, wailing, the sound of absolute inconsolable grief echoing across the water. Ah, mis hijos. Ah, mis hijos. Oh, my children. Oh, my children. A rancher named Miguel Trevino is checking his cattle when he hears it. He freezes. The hair on his arm stands up. He knows that sound. His grandmother warned him about it. His mother told him to stay away from the river after dark. La Llorona, the weeping woman. Miguel crosses himself and hurries back toward his truck. But as he walks, he can't help looking back at the river. And there, in the fog, he swears he sees her. A figure in white, long dark hair, moving along the bank, searching, always searching. He doesn't wait to see more. He runs. This happens in 1987, but it could have been 1887 or 1787, because La Llorona has walked these riverbanks for centuries, and according to those who live along the border, she walks them still. Who is La Llorona? Where does her story come from? Ask 100 people along the Texas-Mexico border, and you'll get 100 different versions. But the core is always the same. A woman, children, water, and tragedy. The most common version goes like this. There was a beautiful woman. Some say she was Spanish. Some say mestiza. Some say indigenous. She lived in a village near a river. She had children. 2 sons in most tellings. Sometimes 3. She fell in love with a man. Or she was already married. Or she was betrayed by a lover who left her for another woman. The details shift depending on who's telling the story. But the ending is always the same. In a moment of madness, of rage, of despair. She drowned her children in the river, and when she realized what she'd done, when the fog of emotion cleared and she saw their small bodies floating away in the current, she screamed. She ran into the water after them, and she drowned too. Now her spirit wanders the riverbanks for eternity, crying, searching for her children, calling out to them, mis hijos, mis hijos. Some say she died by her own hand in grief. Others say God cursed her to wander forever, unable to enter heaven until she finds her children. Still others claim she was condemned by the very water that took them. But however the story's told, the message is clear. She is a warning, a cautionary tale. Stay away from the river at night. Listen to your parents. Beware of strangers. And never, ever anger a desperate mother. This is the legend. But where does it come from? And how did it take root so deeply in Texas? To understand La Llorona, we need to go back. Way back. To Spanish colonial Texas. The 1700s and early 1800s. This is when the story first appears in the written record along the Rio Grande. Spanish missionaries and settlers document hearing tales of a weeping ghost, an anima en pena, a soul in torment. The Spanish brought their own ghost stories to the New World. Tales of wandering spirits, women who died in childbirth or tragedy who couldn't find rest. These stories mixed with indigenous beliefs about water spirits and the souls of the dead. The Rio Grande itself is ancient, sacred to the indigenous peoples who lived along its banks for thousands of years. The Texans, the Humanos, the various bands who knew every bend of the river, every crossing, every danger. Water is life in the desert, but it's also death. The Rio Grande floods. It drowns. It takes. Spanish settlers established missions and ranchos along the river. San Juan Bautista, Nuestra Señora de los Dolores. Small communities trying to survive in harsh territory. Life was brutal. Child mortality was staggering. Women died in childbirth regularly. Diseases swept through communities. Floods destroyed settlements. And the river took its share. How many mothers stood on these banks searching for children swept away by flash floods? How many women lost sons to drowning? How many families buried babies in the hard Texas soil? The grief was real, generational, constant. And in that grief, La Llorona took root. She wasn't invented. She emerged from collective trauma, from the very real experience of mothers losing children to the river, from the need to explain the unexplainable, to give voice to loss so profound it couldn't be contained by one person. La Llorona became the spirit of every mother who lost a child to the water, every woman who grieved, every family torn apart by tragedy along the Rio Grande. And once the story took hold, it spread. From rancho to rancho, mission to mission, generation to generation, becoming more elaborate, more detailed, more terrifying. By the 1800s, La Llorona is a fully formed legend. Children are warned about her. Adults claim to see her. And the river carries her cries every night. 1834. A settler named Ramon Gutierrez documents in his journal seeing una mujer vestida de blanco, a woman dressed in white, walking along the Rio Grande near present-day Laredo. He writes, "She moved as if floating. Her cries were the most sorrowful I have ever heard. I did not approach. I knew what she was." 1856. A priest in Roma records performing blessings for families who claim La Llorona is haunting their rancho. Children are having nightmares. Livestock are spooked. Everyone hears the crying at night. 1836. A newspaper in Brownsville publishes an account of multiple witnesses seeing an apparition near the river. The article treats it seriously. Includes testimony from respected community members. This isn't sensationalism. This is documentation of what people believe they experienced. 1837. During the Mexican Revolution, refugees crossing the Rio Grande report encounters with La Llorona. Some say she warned them of dangers. Others say she led them away from safe crossings. Her legend becomes tied to the river itself, to the act of crossing, of leaving one life for another. Throughout the late 1800s and early 1900s, the sightings continue. They follow a pattern, always at night, usually near water. The Rio Grande most commonly, but also other rivers, the Nueces, San Antonio, even creeks and irrigation ditches. Always a woman in white, long dark hair, sometimes covering her face with her hands, sometimes revealing a skull, sometimes beautiful, sometimes horrifying. Always the crying, "Ay, mis hijos." And always the warning. If she sees you, especially if you're a child, she might mistake you for one of her own. She might try to take you with her into the water. But here's what's important to understand. Beneath the legend are real stories, real tragedies, real grief. In 1865, Maria Hernandez drowns in the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass trying to save her 6-year-old son who fell in during a crossing. Both bodies are recovered days later. The community is devastated. For years afterward, people report hearing a woman crying near that spot. Is it La Llorona? Or is it the echo of collective memory? The community's grief given form. In 1892, a flash flood strikes a settlement near Del Rio. 7 children drown. Their mothers search the riverbank for days, calling their names, refusing to believe they're gone. Witnesses describe the scene as the most heartbreaking thing they've ever seen. Women in white dresses, hair loose, crying as they walk the muddy banks. How long before that image becomes part of the La Llorona legend? In 1923, a mother in Laredo loses her mind after her twin boys drown in an irrigation canal. She wanders the banks for weeks, calling for them, wearing the same white dress, refusing food, refusing help. Eventually, she dies. Some say by her own hand, others say from grief. 3 months later, people start reporting seeing her ghost, hearing her cries. The story spreads, becomes part of the local lore. This is how legends work. They're built on real experiences, real grief, real trauma. They're not just stories made up to scare children. They're cultural memory, ways of processing loss, ways of honoring those who suffered. La Llorona is every mother who lost a child to the river, every woman who grieved beyond what words could express, every family torn apart by water. She's the personification of borderland grief, of the dangers of the Rio Grande, of the price people pay to live in this harsh, beautiful, unforgiving place. The legend doesn't fade as Texas modernizes. If anything, it grows stronger. In 1967, a teenage boy in Brownsville, running late, decides to take a shortcut along the Resaca, a dried riverbed. He hears crying, sees a figure in white, runs home terrified, won't go near water at night for years. 1968, a police officer in Laredo responds to a call about a woman in distress near the river. Multiple witnesses saw her, heard her crying. When he arrives, there's no one there, but he hears it too. The crying, echoing from somewhere he can't locate. His report is filed and quietly forgotten. 1969. Construction workers building near the Rio Grande in McAllen find old graves, unmarked, some containing children's bones. Work stops for weeks while archaeologists investigate. During that time, every night, workers report hearing crying, seeing a woman in white wandering the site. Some refuse to return. 1970. A researcher for Texas Monthly interviews dozens of people along the border about La Llorona. Nearly everyone has a story, either their own encounter or one passed down from family. The article concludes, whether you believe in ghosts or not, the people of the Rio Grande Valley believe in La Llorona, and their belief has power. So what is La Llorona really? Psychologists and folklorists have studied the legend extensively. Their conclusions are fascinating. Dr. Domino Perez, a scholar of Mexican-American literature and culture, argues that La Llorona is a cultural response to maternal trauma. The story gives voice to things that are too painful to discuss directly. Child loss, maternal grief, postpartum depression, domestic violence. In traditional societies, these topics were taboo. You didn't talk about them openly, but you could tell stories, ghost stories, cautionary tales. La Llorona allowed communities to acknowledge these traumas without having to confront them directly. She became a vessel for collective grief. The story also served practical purposes. It kept children away from dangerous rivers. It reinforced cultural values about family and motherhood. It provided a framework for understanding tragedy. And for women dealing with real grief over lost children, La Llorona offered a strange kind of comfort. Your pain is so great, the story says, that even death can't contain it. Your love is so strong that it echoes across generations. From this perspective, La Llorona isn't just a ghost story. She's cultural therapy, a way of processing trauma that has no other outlet. But does that mean she's not real? Here's the thing about ghost stories. Belief creates reality, not objective reality, but subjective experiential reality. If you believe you saw a ghost, if you genuinely experienced terror and wonder and awe, does it matter whether there was actually a spirit there? The experience was real. The emotion was real. The memory is real. And the cultural impact is absolutely real. La Llorona has shaped the Rio Grande Valley for centuries. She's influenced behavior, saved lives by keeping children away from dangerous water, provided comfort to grieving mothers, given communities a shared mythology. Thousands of people have reported encounters. Are they all lying? All hallucinating? All misinterpreting natural phenomena? Maybe. Probably, if we're being scientifically rigorous. But maybe that's missing the point. La Llorona exists in the space between explanation and experience, between what we can prove and what we know in our bones. She's real in the way that all powerful stories are real. She shapes behavior. She influences culture. She connects people across generations. And sometimes on foggy nights along the Rio Grande, people hear crying where no one should be. See figures in white that vanish when approached. Feel the presence of something ancient and sorrowful. Is it a ghost? Is it the wind? Is it the power of suggestion activated by cultural conditioning? Or is it all of those things at once? Today, La Llorona is everywhere in Texas border culture. She appears in art, in literature, in music, in film. She's been reinterpreted, reclaimed, analyzed, commercialized. During Dia de los Muertos celebrations, you'll see La Llorona imagery, white dresses, veiled faces, river motifs. She's become part of the visual vocabulary of Mexican-American identity. In schools along the border, teachers use La Llorona to teach about folklore, about oral tradition, about how stories preserve culture. But she's also still feared, still respected, still believed. Talk to abuelas in the valley and they'll tell you, La Llorona is real. They've heard her, or their mother heard her, or their sister's friend's cousin saw her. And they'll warn you, don't go near the river at night. Don't ignore a mother's crying. And if you see a woman in white walking and weeping, run. Because whether La Llorona is ghost, metaphor, or collective hallucination, she represents something true. The Rio Grande is dangerous. Water takes. Grief is real. And some losses echo across generations. Every culture has its ghost stories, its warnings dressed as legends, its ways of processing trauma through narrative. In Japan, there's Yuki-onna. In Ireland, the Banshee. In Scotland, the Grey Lady. In the American South, the woman in white appears at crossroads. These aren't random. They emerge from specific cultural anxieties, specific geographical dangers, specific historical traumas. La Llorona is the ghost story of the Borderlands, of places where cultures mix, where water is both life and death, where crossing means both opportunity and danger. She's the spirit of mothers separated from children at the border, of families torn apart by migration, of communities divided by a river that doesn't care about politics or nationality. She's generations of grief-given form, walking the banks, searching, always searching. And in that way, she's beautiful, tragic and beautiful, because she represents love that doesn't end, love so powerful that not even death can stop it. A mother's love that becomes a haunting because letting go is impossible. That's the real story of La Llorona, not the horror, the love, the terrible, endless, heartbreaking love of a mother for her children. It's late. The moon is high over the Rio Grande. The water moves slow and dark. Mesquite trees cast long shadows. Somewhere along these banks, perhaps near Roma or Laredo or Brownsville, a woman walks, dressed in white, hair loose and long. She's crying, calling out names that no one answers. I'm his hijos. Is she there? Really there? Would you see her if you went looking? Maybe, maybe not. But the people who live along this river will tell you. Don't go find out. Don't test the legend. Don't go to the water at night. Because La Llorona has walked these banks for centuries, and she'll walk them for centuries more, carrying the grief of every mother who lost a child, every family torn apart, every person who drowned trying to cross. She's Texas history, written in water and sorrow. She's the ghost that won't be laid to rest, because the grief that created her is still happening, still real, still fresh. The Rio Grande flows, the moon rises, and if you listen carefully on quiet nights, you might hear it. That sound, that ancient, terrible, beautiful sound, a mother crying for her children. And whether she's ghost or memory or metaphor or all three, one thing is certain. La Llorona is still here, still walking, still searching, still weeping. Thanks for watching Texas Tales. This was a different kind of story for us. Not just history, but folklore. Not just facts, but feelings. The line between the two is thinner than we sometimes think. If you enjoyed this journey into Texas legend, hit that like button and subscribe. We tell the stories that shape Texas, the famous ones and the hidden ones, the historical and the mythical. Drop a comment. Have you heard La Llorona? Do you have a family story about her? We'd love to hear it. This is Texas Tales, where we remember the past, explore the legends, and honor the stories that connect us. Until next time, y'all. And if you're near the river tonight, maybe stay away. Just to be safe. Take care.